Today on Recapping with Recapped, I am joined by Mike Hoffman. Really excited to talk about some lessons from 2023, what he's excited about for 2024, and some tactical takeaways for go-to-market leaders. Mike, appreciate you taking the time. Want to give a quick intro, who you are, what you do, why it's so interesting.
Absolutely. Mike Hoffman, I'm the founder and CEO of PastSight's. We do win-loss analysis by interviewing our customers' won and lost deals directly and gathering all these insights and giving them back to revenue leaders. And I started the company because I lived this pain point for years. I've been a revenue leader at various SaaS companies, primarily in New York City, my entire career, and always had the challenge of not knowing the real reasons why my teams are losing deals and not knowing which ones we could win back or how to avoid losing more deals in the future. So figure the voice of the customer is the most valuable way to get that and built a company around that.
I love it. I think it's very near and dear pain that almost every revenue leader has felt at some point, or if not feeling right now. Why are we winning? Why are we losing? So much of it is really just based on emotions, I feel like, and whichever way the wind blows.
Exactly. And then you just look at your CRM and it's just not accurate. It's user generated. AEs don't really know the real reasons why, and prospects don't want to tell them the truth anyways.
Yeah. Let's dive right in. What is your ICP? What's been your go-to-market with PastSight? Is there a specific ICP and go-to-market for your customers as well? What are you seeing?
Yeah, in terms of our ICP, we sell to CROs, CMOs, CCOs at SaaS companies with sales teams of at least 5 reps with average deal sizes of at least 10K and with average sales cycles of around 180 days. So more mid-market sales cycle than pure enterprise and higher volume. And in terms of go-to-market strategy, we haven't been doing much cold outbound. That's not where we're seeing the most success. A lot of it's relationships and intros. We're now exploring partnerships, and then a lot of LinkedIn content and building the brand that way and getting leads that way. So I think one of the big trends is like cold email. Not that it's dead. It can still work. It's just not as efficient in terms of getting leads and getting leads that are more convertible on a consistent basis rather than having a real brand and a real face and a real relationship. Oop, you're on mute.
Makes a lot of sense. I think echoes a lot of what we're hearing as well. If we look at 2023, from an execution standpoint, what worked this year for you guys?
Things where we had a lot of success was on the brand building side. We generated a lot of leads through LinkedIn. So people having familiarity with the brand and developing content that's valuable. So that was very successful to us. Asking for introductions. I think people don't do enough of that in general. If somebody's having success with your solution, ask them for other people that they know and push them to send those emails and really make those introductions. I think has worked really well for us and something that I even wish I did more in my career historically. It's much easier to give than to get. So I'm constantly helping people my whole career, but you need to ask for things too. Doing that has worked really well. Those have probably been the biggest successes. And then, the normal sales 101 stuff of having a clear sales process, a clear next step, scheduling a follow-up, doing good discovery, doing good qualification, things like that.
Yeah, I love what you just said about kind of going back to basics, right? So much of these conversations that I've been having and just conversation in general is really, I think, this year and next is all around mastering the fundamentals. It's making sure that the blocking and tackling, the execution, the deal qualification, the deal execution, like if those things aren't lined up, how are you going to win the deals that are winnable, right? Because with everything that's coming into the pipe right now, I'd argue almost all of it is dead by default. And you have to make it alive versus the reverse.
Exactly. And it's amazing how even some of the best sales teams with the best sales leaders, there's still such an opportunity. When we're doing these win-loss interviews, a lot of these deals that were lost have things to do with sales execution and sales process and things like reps not following up, them feeling like that it was just a sale, not building a relationship, not building good rapport, not really controlling the sales process. And so many sales reps and sales leaders, when we onboard customers, thinks it's things like pricing or product. And oftentimes it's not that, especially product. It's not, oh, if you had that one feature, you'd close so many more deals. That might be what a prospect's telling you just to make it easier on you. But I think a lot more deals can be won, like you said, if people just go back to the blocking and tackling and just the sales basics.
So this actually opens up, I guess, a can of worms. It sounds like it's not pricing and features that you're finding as kind of like the win-loss. What are the biggest reasons that people are losing and winning deals? And were any of those really, really shocking to you as you did this analysis for companies?
Yeah, the biggest shocker for me is that product is rarely the reason why people lose. We have our own customized loss reasons at PastSight, and if anything, it's value. People are not seeing enough value in the solution. And a lot of that has to do with sellers not understanding what their buyers care about. So you might be able to sell all day that your product's going to have an ROI, and you think you've done your job because they see that it's valuable, that if they pay X, they get Y for it. But that's not what people care about. And so I think there's a lot of not really understanding buyers' pain points and knowing how to sell into that is something that I've seen a ton, and that it's rarely product. There's so much more within a sales team's control than they think there
Mm.
is.
It pains me to hear that because as a CEO, and obviously I know that it's very rarely product, but as a product focused CEO, like so much of it, I'm like, oh, if we just had that one feature, if we had this one thing, that's it, we would have won that deal. But to your point, I mean, I know deep down that's not the case, but it's so easy to just rely on that because it's also something that's out of your control a little bit, right? If so much of it is around driving value, what are the best ways that you found that companies are building that value and demonstrating that value to be able to win those deals?
Yep. So it's really discovery. And I know this sounds basic and simple, but it's what are the buyer's pain points? So that's one thing, is really understanding their pain points, because you might think your product solves for X. So even if that is something that can add value, that's not what they care about. So what are they really trying to solve, and how can you solve that? That's one. Number two is, how do they assess the value? So these are questions we ask relatively straight up: is, when you evaluated XYZ company, what pain points did you have? How did you assess the value? Why didn't you buy? Things like that. And companies don't understand how they assess the value either. They think it's like, oh, just the ROI and things like that. That might be how they justify it, but how they assess the value might be, okay, what level of support am I going to get? Or
Mm.
what usage are we going to get from the solution? Or will there be buy-in from sales reps, for example? And so like those are the things that are more important, is like, how are they assessing if they want to be a yes for this and then justifying it? Instead, companies are pushing people through their random ROI exercises or business cases, and they think that that's going to win the deal, when it's like, you don't even know what your buyer cares about.
That's so interesting. Changing gears, you talked about what is winning, what's working, either internally at PastSight or with the customers that you're working with. What have been some of the biggest failures, misses, flops, lessons of this past year?
I know there's the expression, like, if you can't do it, teach it. And like, that's so real. I'm talking about sales 101 practices, and I do a lot of them, but I still screw a lot of them up. And like, the sales manager in me is like, you should have gotten a follow up, or you should be pushing harder. And so it's like, I have more empathy probably than I did. It had been a while before I was selling directly, as I was managing for the last 10 years or so. And knowing that you can train people to do stuff all the time, but it's not as easy to do it, that's been a learning. Controlling the sales process. So we find when customers bypass, like, they get addicted to the insights, they want to keep going, but getting people to buy has been a challenge. And it's like, we have great first calls, people see the value in it, but how do we make it A, a priority, and B, continue to create momentum in the sales process with next steps? And so those are things I'm thinking about that we could definitely have done a better job on.
Man, what you said about getting back in and rolling your sleeves up resonates so much. I mean, this was the first year I've sold in, I don't know, 7, 8 years. And before that, VP of sales and in sales management. And uh, it's tough, right? You end up building so much empathy because it's your point. It's like, oh, why don't you just ask that one question when you're on the discovery? But it is so much harder when you're actually in the weeds. I felt that same pain myself actually this year. But just funny that you say that.
100%.
Yeah. So, what are you excited about in 2024, and what are you going to do differently?
Yeah, so I am very excited that like if we can sell now, it's only going to get easier. And I'm not saying the market's going to be dramatically different next year. Everybody has different opinions on it, but this year was a hard year. And for the companies that were still able to sell, that's only going to get easier. Like for PastSight, the brand's only going to get stronger. We're going to have more customers spreading the word. We're going to get smarter about how we generate leads. We're going to get smarter about how we run sales processes. We're going to get smarter about how we price and package and all of that. So I'm just excited that we were able to build something in a really hard time, and it's going to get harder in other ways, but I think it's going to get easier in a lot of ways too.
I 100% agree. I mean, if you look at, the 2008 financial crisis, 2001, some of the world's best companies came out of that. The Facebooks, the Googles.
Exactly.
100% agree. Were there any best practices or hacks that you learned this year that you're going to be employing going forward, or that you'd recommend anybody watching to also think about?
The main things are, I think, brand is really important. So building a brand, building relationships. So like that could be, I've heard about teams that are just doing everything solely on LinkedIn and engaging with buyers' content and generating meetings that way. And so I think like leveraging LinkedIn, at least for PastSight, our buyers are on LinkedIn. I would guess the same for you too. But I would say it's not just like sheer force of getting X amount of emails out or even personalized emails out. It's thinking outside of the box, leveraging relationships. For us, it's going to events, having people see us in person, things like that. But I think like the hack is think differently than you've ever thought before because there's more noise, but that also leads to there's more of an opportunity to stand out if you do the right things.
Absolutely. If you had to do only one thing to generate leads or grow business, whether it's events or ads or whatever, if you had to do only one thing in 2024, what would you do?
Great question. If I only had to do one thing, I would say probably events, meeting people in person, and then also playing the long game too of building those relationships. If you count referrals, I think there's a huge opportunity in referrals, but that's a little different. I think events is going to be the big one for us.
Yeah, that's amazing. How can people help you, and how can you help others?
How can I help others? I mean, hopefully most founders and CEOs say this, but how I can help others is like people buy our services. It genuinely helps people. But I'm constantly making introductions to people. I think I've helped 7 people get full-time jobs this year from 2 people I know. So that always makes me feel good. So if anybody's looking for a job, I know people looking and hiring and always trying to make the right connections. They're always trying to mentor sales reps and things like that. So I find like in my career, the more I help people, the better it makes me feel and the more it helps me in the long run. And how can people help me introduce me to any revenue leaders? I mean, we have happy customers that are renewing. It's about generating, getting more leads, and then also looking for a founding engineer. So there's a good New York City engineer. Would love to be connected to them.
Let me ask around my circles, especially on the engineering side, see if there's anyone that I can help you with on that. But
That'd be
absolutely.
amazing.
Yeah. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this. How can people find you? How can people get in contact with you? Any plugs, anything else you want to share?
Yeah, I mean, Mike at PastSight.com is my email. LinkedIn, I'm pretty active on. We do revenue driven win loss analysis. So if that's interesting where people even want to learn more, I think it's the biggest opportunity to understand why you're losing deals and gives you such a competitive advantage to have that information. So if you're interested or
Yeah.
know people interested, would love any introductions.
Beautiful. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Mike. Thanks everybody else, and excited for some of these episodes to come out, and we'll go from there.
Appreciate it, man.